Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly reading series hosted by miserytourism.com, where we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work. We've got a nice batch of writers and readers this week, and I'm not going to belabor this thing. Oh, hey, Dave is trying to rejoin. I will actually let him in this time. Okay. All right. So first up, we have Michael. Are you with us, Michael?
I am with us.
Now, you read a piece last week, and you're going to read something else from the same work in progress novel, I think.
Yes, that is the plan.
Awesome. It's all yours.
Cool. So I know some of you were here last week. This is another chapter from my novel. Basic premise: homeless guy believes he's a superhero. Is waging a one-man war on the drug epidemic in this town, and two friends are following him and making a movie about him. Um, so I guess like one bit of context, so prior to this point in the book, over the course of like interviews and conversations they have with this guy while filming the movie, he keeps referring to this enemy character, and that becomes a little bit more important in this chapter. Cool. So this is the 15th chapter. John's car comes to a stop at the cul-de-sac's edge, and he cuts the engine. Lena sits next to him, replacing the battery in the camera. They've crossed town twice tonight already, after Lena realized that the camera's memory card was full and she hadn't grabbed the spare. John has smoked 3 cigarettes already. Now his stomach feels uneasy. He leaves the pack on the dashboard and takes a long swig from a plastic bottle of water as he gets out of the car. It's a hot August night, and unseen mosquitoes dive bomb his neck in search of blood. Everything okay there? John asks. Lena snaps the camera's viewfinder shut with a click. Yeah, she says, turning toward the woods and the trail leading into them. The air is still hot beneath the trees. Neither move to turn on a light. By now the trails are known to them, like they've been walking them for years. It's quiet save for the occasional snap of a twig above, an unseen bird fluttering from one branch to another, and the low hum of crickets seeking invisible love and togetherness in the dark. When they reach the ruined house, they descend the noisy stairs to the basement, but Gray isn't there. The camping lantern is lit, and the plate with scattered brown dust sits beside it, but there are no signs of where he might be. Lena scans the room with her camera. John takes a few steps toward the couch and feels something soft beneath his shoe. He stoops and picks up a brown leather wallet. Inside, he finds a few crumpled dollar bills and a photograph of a smiling woman with auburn hair. She leans against the door of a red pickup truck, waving at the camera, her face ignited by sunlight. Look at this, John says, taking the picture out of the wallet and holding it out to Lena. Lena trains the camera lens on it for several moments and then looks at John. Weird, she says, taking the photo and the wallet from John. Lena puts the photo back inside and drops it to the floor. We don't want him knowing we've been rooting around, she says. Yeah, says John. He moves close to the wall and picks at a loose slice of paint. It crumbles and falls. I wonder where he is, John continues. They ascend the stairs and stand in the kitchen. John finds a wooden chair propped up against the wall and sits. The chair creaks, but it doesn't break. What should we do now? He asks. Leave and come back, I guess, Lena says. She closes the camera's viewfinder. God damn it. We just needed floorboards grown for the next room. Lena and John leave the kitchen and find Gray sitting on the floor in front of a brick fireplace. As they approach, Gray turns his head. Sweat drenches his face and his hair and his eyes are bloodshot and wide. It's time, says Gray. Lena quickly turns the camera back on before asking, time for what? To confront him. Confront who? The enemy of all, the enemy of everything, Gray says. He stands and loses his balance, reaching out to grip the fireplace mantelpiece. Gray's body shakes as if it's ready to give out at any moment. Where is this enemy? Lena asks. I know where he is. I know where to stop him. I just need... Gray's voice trails off. With his free hand, Gray grabs the corner of the American flag tied around his neck and wipes his face. He then releases his grip on the mantelpiece and shuffles forward. The pained look on his face relaxes, and he smiles at John and Lena, then walks past them and out into the entrance hall. Gray grabs the baseball bat leaning against the wall. Its wooden shaft is chipped and cracked in places. They follow Gray away from the house along the narrow path to the trails, the plant life looming after a summer of unrestrained growth, thick vines and stems fighting against them, but Gray is unrelenting, undeterred. Mosquitoes attack again and again. On the path, Gray starts coughing, and he kneels and seizes his chest for a few moments before standing again. John looks up through the branches where the sky is clear and shattered by stars. Gray tells him that the enemy he's looking for is on the far side of town, so they walk to the cul-de-sac and get in John's car, Lena and Gray taking the back seat. John's nose wrinkles at the unwashed stench of Gray. He rolls the windows down and fresh air flows in to obscure the smell as they drive. "What's the deal with this enemy guy?" asks Lena. Gray stares out the window, the sweat on his face fading away. The air brushes aside his hair as it rushes into the car. "He's hurt people," Gray says. "Lots of people. Took things from them. He took away everything from someone I knew. They've been doing this for a long time, but no longer. Tonight is where it ends. Tonight is when I stop them." Gray stops speaking and he closes his eyes. Lena sets the camera on her knee with the lens aimed at Gray. They drive on. After a while, Gray opens his eyes.
Whole bag of jelly beans.
After a while, Gray opens his eyes, leans forward, and points out turns to John. After 4 left turns and a right, they ascend a hilltop, and Montford lays before them in gold-orange chains of light, the light of 1,000 homes. Town center, a fiery beacon of life, the serpentine arc of the highway, a red-white streak on the horizon. The car descends the hill and the view is lost, and they're back among the encroachment of the trees. "Pull over here," Gray says. John eases the car to the side of the road and turns off the engine. Lena and John exit the car. Gray grips the roof of the car as he gets out, gasping like a fish on a dock, before he pushes himself upright, as if driven by a sudden swell of energy. He points down the road and says, "There," and starts to walk with John and Lena in tow. Several minutes later, they come across a long line of cars and trucks. A 2-story home with a wide lawn rises on the left, music and voices echoing from its backyard, a summer bash in full swing. A man stands by the front door, smoking a cigarette. He glowers at them as Gray walks up the lawn, the grass wet with late-night dampness. Lena stands a few feet behind him with the camera. John is behind Lena, gripping the phone in his pocket. "Who the fuck are you?" the man asks, his voice thick with booze. "I'm here to see Neil," says Gray. The man grins and a stream of smoke dribbles through his teeth. "What makes you think there's someone around here with that name, asshole?" the man asks. "Tell him the one who's been killing his friends is here and wants to talk," says Gray. The man drops his cigarette onto the concrete in front of the steps and spits on it. Scowling at Gray, he turns and goes through the front door. There's muffled shouting inside, and then the volume of the music plunges. The door opens again, and the man comes out with several more people behind him. One of them is tall, well-built in a lime green t-shirt with a mushroom printed on its front. He glares at Gray and takes a step toward him. "You're the piece of shit?" he asks. Gray grins. "Where's Neil?" Gray asks. "Shut the fuck up," the man says. "Get him, Alex." "Ooh, you're gonna get fucked up now," another man says. "The fuck you think you're doing showing up here?" the man named Alex asks. Gray lunges forward and swings the baseball bat at Alex's face. He misses. Alex steps forward, his fist crashing against Gray's chest as he grabs him by the sweatshirt and headbutts him. Angry grunts, like cornered boar, and the baseball bat falls from Gray's hands. Alex raises his fists and steps forward, and Gray throws a kick at his shin, a pain-daggered yell from Alex, who, pearl fury on his face, throws a palm crash against Gray's nose. Gray doesn't waver, but blood bursts from a wound, a scarlet mask, bright red river, teeth and beard and skin alight with madness. Alex turns, laughing something at his friends, and as he does, Gray barrels forward, ape fury, arms flailing like a busted windmill, his body unchained until Alex seizes him by the neck, and as Gray grips his wrists and madness barks, Alex with a free hand flashes a knife and plunges it into Gray's abdomen, 4 times the singing steel, shining red in the light. Then Gray, his body begging for breath, beaten, crumbles to the grass. Alex spits a wad of blood and mucus on Gray's cape, turns around, and ascends the steps to the front door. John and Lena kneel beside Gray. Gray howls in pain, his face sweat doused, his eyes red wide, body shaking and afraid. Lena lifts Gray's shirt where blood streams from the chest wounds. The last of the men disappear through the door, and the light above them goes dark. Fuck! Fuck! Whimpers Lena. Tears trickle down her face. We gotta get him to a hospital. Go get your car. John stands and runs as fast as he can up the hill to his car, fumbling with his keys to unlock the door, anger welling in his eyes, trying to process what just happened. He starts the car and shoves his face onto the accelerator, and the engine screams like a cat on fire before he remembers that he didn't shift it into drive. The car jerks forward down the hill to the edge of the lawn where Lena has dragged Gray. John gets out of the car and runs around the other side. His feet slip and he slams hard on the pavement. He yelps, but gets back up, burying deep the pain beneath the adrenaline rush. Booming music and laughter resound from inside the house, like the whole party is in on some grand joke. Lena opens the back door of the car and she and John lift Gray onto the seat. Gray grabs the headrest of the driver's seat as they push him in, howling but his eyes distant, his voice ragged and beyond all meaning. Beneath the awning at Lowell General Hospital's emergency entrance, John breaks squeal as they're forced into action. Lena exits the car and runs inside, and John can hear her calling for help. You're going to be okay, John says to Gray. Gray opens his mouth to say something, and his lips shake, but he doesn't speak. Gray's hands squeeze the wounds with an old T-shirt. Blood stains the shirt, and the cushions of the seat, and the floor of the car. The door beside Gray opens, and 2 hospital workers raise Gray onto a stretcher. Gray bellows, but he goes limp as they rush him through the hospital doors, Lena running beside him. John turns the car back on and drives out from beneath the awning and into the parking lot. He shuts the engine off and lights a cigarette. He leaves the windows shut and smoke coils around him like an angry snake. Versions of what happens next play on rapid speed in his mind. Conversations with doctors about what happened. The bombardment of questions about who they are, who Gray is, why they're covered in blood, and who will pay to save Gray's life. John then exits the car and looks down at the blood caked in his clothes. The urge to cry rushes him, but he pushes it back. People in the waiting room lift their heads, and John feels their eyes on his filthy clothes as he approaches the reception desk. Excuse me, they just brought my friend in with stab wounds, and another friend was with him, John says. The receptionist points to one of the doors leading away from the entrance area. John's shoes squeak on the chemical cleansed floor, and his nostrils flare at the stench of disinfectant. Lena sits at the end of a row of empty chairs with her bloody hands clasped in her lap. The camera, smudged by dark red fingerprints, is on the chair beside her. John moves the camera and sits. Lena clears her throat. Well, this is fucked, she says. You think? John asks. What did you tell them? I told them that we found him like this, lying in the road and yelling for help, that we didn't know him or who did this to him. Where is he now? In surgery, I think. They wheeled him off pretty quick. John feels a nicotine itch, an invisible insect at the back of his brain. He slumps in the chair, eyes on the clock where the second hand cuts like a blade through wet cement. After a while, John stands and wanders the empty hallways, nauseous from the antiseptic odor on every surface. When he spots a vending machine, the realization of how hungry he is suddenly consumes him, so he takes the last dollar from his wallet and buys a chocolate bar. Leaning against the wall, he eats it, trying not to think of Gray and what's being done to him, his body exposed to the world. As he eats, a family of 4 walks by, the mother tearfully gripping the hands of 2 children, the father a few paces behind with clicking fingers on his phone. John wonders how long they've been at the hospital, whether a sick elder or dying child brought them here. He then crumbles the wrapper, tosses it into a trash bin, and walks back to the waiting area, where Lena rests her head against the wall, her eyes closed. John sits behind her and scratches his legs with his hands. With nothing else to do, he rests his head back and shuts his eyes. A door opens and the sound jerks John out of his stupor. A doctor in blue scrubs walks out and approaches them with a clipboard and a bundle of paper in his hand. Are you the one that brought the victim in? The doctor asks. Yes, says Lena, standing up. You got him here just in time. Luckily, no major organs were hit, though he lost a lot of blood and will need to rest up for a while. The doctor looks down at his clipboard for a moment. What's your relationship with the individual? Well, like I told the lady up front, we didn't really know him. Well, no, We met him because he wanted a ride, so we gave him one. I see, says the doctor, the skepticism in his voice barely contained. What's his name? Lena looks at John. We don't know his name. He didn't give it to us, and we never asked. It's true, says John. We don't. I see. Well, in such cases, it's the procedure to contact the police for an investigation. When they arrive, you'll need to give a statement, the doctor says. If you would wait here until then, please. The doctor turns and then walks back through the door. Shit, says John. We got to get out of here. What? You want to talk to the fucking cops? Fuck that. We got to get out of here. But if we just... Lena picks up the camera and wipes some of the blood streaks from the lens. The smear widens and further obscures the glass. So you're just going to leave him? John asks. What do you care? Lena asks. You never wanted to do this in the first place. That's not true. The doctors are going to take care of him. If we stay, it'll just be more questions. More questions mean we might get in trouble. If we go, it won't hurt him. He's got to rest and shit, he probably doesn't want to see us anyway. Come on. She walks down the hall toward the entrance. John scowls and starts to follow her. And as they go through the reception area and through the automatic doors, the sensation of eyes, their judgments, their assumptions, pierces him like hot metal. After darting across the pavement to the parking lot, they climb into John's car and rush away from the hospital. An alert symbol glows red beside the gas gauge, but John keeps the car on toward Montford, trying to ignore the weakness coming from the engine as it cries out for fuel. Outside Lena's house, John lights another cigarette. Lena sits behind him and watches footage in the camcorder's monitor. John peers over and scowls, then flicks his camera down onto the pavement, where its end burns orange until it finally dies. I need to go home, says John. I'm supposed to see Max tomorrow, and fuck, this car is a fucking mess. He looks down at his blood-stained hands, the red-streaked steering wheel. It's everywhere. Okay, yeah. When are you getting back? We should go see him tomorrow. What? John asks, the panic breaking through. Just go without me. Okay, sure. Well, call me when you're back. I don't know. Okay, sure. Whatever. Maybe, says John. Lena peers at him for a moment and then clambers out of the car and shuts the door. Halfway up the pathway across the yard, Lena turns and watches John for a minute and then gives him a weak wave of the hand before turning away. John waits until he hears the snap of Lena's front door to restart the engine, but he doesn't drive away at first. He sits and listens to the sputtering car as it drinks the last drops of gas in the tank. And that's it.
Man, I'm mesmerized. I can't wait to get the actual book in my hands. I can't wait for this to be done so I can read the whole thing, because just like your pacing is so incredible and the prose is so engrossing, you just get like sucked in. And I really felt completely absorbed by it. I especially appreciated the fight scene, because oftentimes combat in books is either really fucking dull or it's really over the top and over descriptive, and this felt really visceral, right? It was terse, it was brief, but you could feel every fucking blow. I loved it. It was amazing.
That's really good to hear, because I've been reworking the fight scenes in the book because they were outrageously dull. I wrote the first draft about 2 years ago, and my style of writing has changed since then. So right. In doing these successive drafts, I've been trying to make the style less shitty what it was.
Can I ask you how you chose to write that? What were you scared of? Were you trying to avoid being too dramatic and over the top, or
with the fight stuff?
Yeah, because for me, I kind of, in my book, I really oversimplified some stuff. And also, I'm not even trying to do anything. You got the knife stuff really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When I wrote the fight scenes, they were it was just terse, short sentences that whenever I'd read them aloud, it just kind of bored me. Oh, he punches, he kicks. So I was really unhappy with them, but I didn't really know what to do. And then
Mhm.
earlier this week, I was rereading Big Sur by Jack Kerouac, and there's just some part in there where, like, I don't know, just the way his language was flowing, it just like got me thinking, like, this is what a fight scene, like the kind of flow, like, of language where it's almost just like relentless poetry. Like, this is what it should be like.
Relentless is the perfect word.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say, yeah, I agree with Eris. Like, relentless is exactly the right word for the way the fight plays out
Thank you.
here.
That's really, really good to hear. One of the reasons why I wanted to read this tonight was because this was like the first reworking of the fight scene that I had done, and so I have to go back and do a couple more. There's like
Yeah, no,
5
everyone's
out in the book.
engrossed and like, yeah, you're phenomenal. Fuck.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
you should definitely read the chat because there's a lot of, and the fight scene in particular, I think got a fair amount of positive feedback in there. So yeah, definitely. Thank you for reading, Michael, and hopefully
Thank
you'll
you
come
for
back and share more from the novel.
That's the plan. As I'm finalizing these edits, I'm just gonna
No,
keep
I like,
bringing it here and reading it.
when
So
you,
Awesome.
like, I really felt like I was there, like when you're a little kid and your brain kind of works better because you haven't destroyed it with drugs yet. And, you're just, the imagery is just, it was great. It was perfect.
thank you. I really appreciate that.
Gabriel, oh wait. Gabriel, you're up next. I just let someone in. I'm going to watch them for a second here, but I've been watching the chat to see if anyone, not the chat, but I've been watching the lobby to see if anyone acts up or unmutes their mic. So hopefully if somebody starts trolling, we'll dispatch them quickly. But yeah, Gabriel, you're up next.
Cool. I'm reading someone else's work tonight. I'm reading, I just revisited, so I'll be reading from Bataille's Erotism, Death and Sensuality. I just revisited it.
Okay. Sorry about
There's
that.
some sexuality for you. It was part of my act, actually. But yeah, I recently revisited the transgression chapter in here, and I felt like I had to read it this week. So it's a little clunky. It's a French translation, so it's very like, you know how translations go. But I'll just start right in. The transgression does not deny the taboo, but transcends it and completes it. It is not only the great variety of their subjects, but also a certain illogicality that makes it difficult to discuss taboos. Two diametrically opposed views are always possible on any subject. There exists no prohibition that cannot be transgressed. Often the transgression is permitted, often is even prescribed. We feel like laughing when we consider the solemn commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," followed by a blessing on armies and the Te Deum of the apotheosis. No beating about the bush, murder is connived at immediately after being banned. The violence of war certainly betrays the God of the New Testament, but it does not oppose the God of armies of the Old Testament in the same way. If the prohibition were a reasonable one, it would mean that wars would be forbidden and we should be confronted with the choice to ban war and to do everything possible to abolish military assassination, or else to fight and to accept the law as hypocritical. This is perfect timing for Biden's latest move here. But the taboos on which the world of reason is founded are not rational for all that. To begin with, a calm opposite to violence would not suffice to draw a clear line between the two worlds. If the opposition did not itself draw upon violence in some way, if some violent negative emotion did not make violence horrible for everyone, reason alone cannot define those shifting limits authoritatively enough. Only unreasoning dread and terror could survive in the teeth of the forces let loose. This is the nature of the taboo, which makes a world of calm reason possible, but is itself basically a shudder appealing not to reason, but to feeling, just as violence is. Human violence is the result not of cold calculation, but of emotional states, anger, fear, or desire. We have to take into consideration the irrational nature of taboos if we want to understand the indifference to logic they constantly display. In the sphere of irrational behavior we are reviewing, we have to say, sometimes an intangible taboo is violated, but that does not mean to say that it has ceased to be intangible. We can even go as far as the absurd proposition, the taboo is there in order to be violated. This proposition is not the wager it looks like at first, but an accurate statement of an inevitable connection between conflicting emotions. When a negative emotion has the upper hand, we must obey the taboo. When a positive emotion is in the ascendant, we violate it. Such a violation will not deny or suppress the contrary emotion, but justify it and arouse it. We should not be frightened of violence in the same way if we did not know or at least obscurely sense that it could lead us to worse things. The statement, the taboo is there to be violated, ought to make sense of the fact that the taboo on murder, universal though it may be, nowhere opposes war. I'm even convinced that without the prohibition, war would be impossible and inconceivable. Animals, recognizing no taboos, have never progressed from the fights they take part in to the organized undertaking of war. War, in a way, boils down to the collective organization of aggressive urges. Like work, it is organized by the community. Like work, it has a purpose. It is the answer to the considered intention of those who wage it. We cannot say, therefore, that war and violence are in conflict, but war is organized violence. The transgression of the taboo is not animal violence. It is violence still, used by a creature capable of reason, putting his knowledge to the service of violence for the time being. At the very least, the taboo is the threshold beyond which murder is possible. And for the community, war comes about when the threshold is crossed. If transgression proper, as opposed to ignorance of the taboo, did not have this limited character, it would be a return to violence, to animal violence. But nothing of the kind is so. Organized transgression together with the taboo makes social life what it is. The frequency and the regularity of transgressions do not affect the intangible stability of the prohibition, since they are its expected complement. Just as the diastolic movement completes a systolic one, or just as explosion follows upon compression. The compression is not subservient to the explosion, far from it. It gives it increased force. This looks like a new idea, though it is founded on immemorial experience. But it runs counter to the world of speech from which science is derived, and that is why it is found stated only recently. Often the transgression of a taboo is no less subject to rules than the taboo itself. No liberty here. In such a time and up to a certain point, this is permissible. That is what the transgression concedes. But once a limited license has been allowed, unlimited urges towards violence may break forth. The barriers are not merely raised, for it may even be necessary at the moment of transgression to assert their solidity. Concern over a rule is sometimes at its most acute when that rule is being broken, for it is harder to limit a disturbance already begun. Let me give you a noteworthy instance. It can happen that violence overreaches the bounds of the taboo in some way. It may seem, that once the law has become powerless, there is nothing to keep violence firmly within bounds in the future. Basically, death contravenes the taboo against the violence, which is supposedly its cause. Most frequently, the subsequent sense of rupture brings in its wake a minor disturbance, which funeral rites and festivities with their ordered ritual, setting bounds to disorderly urges, are able to absorb. But if death prevails over a sovereign whose exalted position might seem to be a guarantee against it, that sense of rupture gets the upper hand, and disorder knows no bounds. The mechanism of transgression is manifest when violence is let loose in this way. Man intended to curb nature when he set up taboos in opposition, and indeed he thought he had succeeded. When he confined the violent urges of his own nature within bounds, he thought he had done the same for the violence in the world outside himself. But when he saw how ineffectual was the barrier he had sought to set up against violence, the rules he had meant to observe himself lost their significance. His suppressed urges were unleashed. Thenceforth he killed without hesitation, ceased to control his sexual exuberance, and feared no longer to perform publicly and unrestrainedly acts which hitherto he had only performed in private. As long as the king's body was given over to an active decomposition, the whole of society was under sway of violence. The barrier that had not saved the king from the ravages of death could not withstand the excesses that constantly endanger the social order. No well-defined rules order these major acts of sacrilege, given free rein by the death of the king. But when nothing remains of the dead man but the clean bones, this chaotic reign of license comes to end. Even in this extreme case, transgression has nothing to do with the primal liberty of animal life. It opens the door into what lies beyond limits usually observed, but it maintains these limits just the same. Transgression is complementary to the profane world, exceeding its limits but not destroying it. Human society is not only a world of work. Simultaneously or successively, it is made up of the profane and the sacred, its two complementary forms. The profane world is the world of taboos. The sacred world depends on limited acts of transgression. It is the world of celebrations, sovereign rulers, and God. This approach is a difficult one, in that sacred simultaneously has two contradictory meanings. Whatever is the subject of a prohibition is basically sacred. The taboo gives a negative definition of the sacred object and inspires us with awe on the religious plane. Carried to extremes, that feeling becomes one of devotion and adoration. The gods who incarnate this sacred essence put fear into the hearts of those who reverence them, yet men do reverence them nonetheless. Men are swayed by two simultaneous emotions. They are driven away by terror and drawn by an odd fascination. Taboo and transgression reflect these two contradictory urges. The taboo would forbid the transgression, but the fascination compels it. Taboos and the divine are opposed to each other in one sense only, for the sacred aspect of the taboo is what draws men towards it and transfigures the original interdiction. The often intertwined themes of mythology spring from these factors. The only clear and comprehensible distinction between these two aspects of the taboo is an economic one. Taboos are there to make work possible. Work is productive. During the profane period allotted to work, consumption is reduced to the minimum consistent with continued production. Sacred days, though, are feast days. Then things which usually are forbidden are permitted or even required, though the upheaval is not necessarily as total as that following the death of a king. The values of the workday world are inverted. From an economic standpoint, the reserves accumulated during periods of work are squandered extravagantly at feast times. Here is a clear-cut distinction. We are not perhaps justified in asserting that religion is based on breaking the rules rather than on the rules themselves, but feast days depend on a readiness to make great inroads upon savings, and feast days are the crown of religious activity. Getting and spending are the two phases of this activity. Seen in the light, religion is like a dance where a movement backwards is followed by a spring forward. Man must combat his natural impulses to violence. This signifies an acceptance of violence at the deepest level, not an abrupt break from it. The feeling responsible for rejection of violence is kept going in the background by this acceptance. Moreover, the urge to reject violence is so persistent that the swing of accepted violence always has a dizzying effect. Man is seized first with nausea, then as it passes by a heady vertigo, phases of the paradoxical dance ordained by religious attitudes. By and large, then, in spite of the complexity of impulses concerned, the meaning is plain enough. Religion is the moving force behind the breaking of taboos. Now, religion is founded on feelings of terror and awe. Indeed, it can hardly be thought of without them, and their existence causes some confusion. The recoil that inevitably follows the forward movement is constantly being presented as the essence of religion. This interpretation is obviously incomplete, and the misunderstanding could easily be cleared up. But for a misleading inner swing of feeling based on deep inversion in harmony with the rational or practical world. In universal religions like Christianity or Buddhism, terror and nausea are a prelude to bursts of burning spiritual activity. Founded as it is on reaffirmation of the primary taboos, this spiritual life yet implies a celebration, that is, the transgression, not the observation of the law. In Christianity and Buddhism, ecstasy begins where horror is slowed off. A sense of union with the irresistible powers that bear all things before them is frequently more acute in these religions, where the pangs of terror and nausea are felt most deeply. More than any other state of mind, consciousness of the void about us throws us into exaltation. This does not mean that we feel an emptiness in ourselves, far from it, but we pass beyond that into awareness of the act of transgression.
That was fascinating because it actually like dovetails with a lot of shit I've been thinking about lately. Like a lot of the like religious stuff and the like stuff about like 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 the connection between like transgression and like ideas about royalty and ideas about like the social contract and shit like that. I've been thinking about a lot of that shit because of the novel I'm half-assed working on.
Yeah, someone just said it reminded them of that.
Yeah, I saw that. And it also though, like just with all the shit that's going on right now in society, like you were saying with obviously with Biden and the situation in Syria and all that right now, but also like just generally like this has serious echoes of the like endless like demoralizing like Twitter drama and media and cultural drama about like what transgression is acceptable and what transgression is not, right? Like, and I don't know, I really will have to check this out. I haven't read Batil before, but I definitely am intrigued now.
Yeah, you'd love him for sure.
Before I move on, we suddenly have 8 people waiting in the waiting room. Does anyone know if any of their friends or anything is waiting? Because it's been a rough night, so I'm not inclined to let new people in unless I know who they are.
Those are my only friends, so not for me.
Yeah, the friends I was waiting on are already in.
Already in. Okay, so I'm just going to let them wait. If you do have someone you know who's sitting in the waiting room, just put something in the chat, okay, and I'll let them in. But I think the trolls are out in force tonight. Anyway, yeah, thank you, Gabriel. I definitely, I'm going to have to add that to my reading list because sorry, I'm a little rattled. I've got like 6 tabs open. Josh, you're up next.
Yeah, the only Bataille I've read is Story of the Eye, which I think has some skull fucking in it. But
oh yeah, that's a really good initiation to Bataille. That's the most popular one.
Yeah. So I think I don't think I've read. So I think, William, you have a link that you can.
Yes, I do.
And I might have read a very, very early and not anywhere like. Anyways, if I read this before, it was much different, and this is closer to the final form. So it's called Lemons. I'm scanning the toilet bowl for blood. I can't see any, but I haven't gotten everything out, so I use my thumb and index finger and start stroking to dislodge the last bits of urine. I'm only 29 and already sort of incontinent, apparently. Just a few years ago, I could shoot a urinal puck around with the force of my stream. Is it a stricture, maybe? Something wrong with my prostate? I researched the human body a lot because they say you should know your enemy. A urethral stricture can impede the flow of urine, and if untreated, this narrowing of the passage can cause cancer. I've also learned that the prostate is constantly expanding, like the universe. A decade ago, my prostate would have been around the size of a walnut. In another 30 years, it'll be more like a lemon. But lemons are the last thing I want to talk about right now. It's because of this Subway ad about bladder cancer that's been haunting me. In it, there's a pile of lemons, and one is bright red. See red? See your doctor, the caption warns. And then there's an image of it. The yellow lemons, for the less, I guess, I don't know, literal minded, the yellow lemons are the urine, and the red lemon is the blood from your soon to be extracted cancerous bladder. I'm afraid that one day I'll have to have my bladder removed because of my near constant drinking. That's what happened to my mom's alcoholic friend. They replaced his bladder with a urostomy pouch that he forever hides in his pants. Whenever I see him, I try and discern the outline of the piss bag in his jeans. To his credit, he cloaks it well, but I can't imagine what it's done to his dating life. And the last thing I need is an impediment like that. If I wasn't funny, I'm pretty sure I'd be an incel. So I don't know why I've been disregarding my body, or where the fuck I get off acting like this. But so far, I've been doing it with impunity, and the lack of consequence unnerves me. It's like some sort of cosmic oversight, or an evolutionary glitch. Only in the 21st century would an existence like mine be enabled. I'd be easy prey throughout much of human history. Can you imagine the Romans tolerating this shit? My ancient death wouldn't warrant any ritual or ceremony. Nobody would be slaughtering any virgins to mark the occasion. These are the kinds of things I mull while standing over the toilet with my dick hanging out, running late for work again. 5 minutes to shave, 3 to brush my teeth, less to dress. My chest aches vaguely and my jaw is sore, clicking as I swish my alcohol-free mouthwash. I've been grinding my teeth a lot lately. Click. In the kitchen, there's a running sobriety tally on the little chalkboard I hang by the entrance. There are 3 white lines scrawled on it, each representing a day of the month that I haven't had a drink or done drugs. The month is almost over. Nearby, my glass coffee table is smudged with traces of the night before. The table is an unexpectedly useful gift from my mom. The glass panels are an ideal surface to snort drugs off of. Sometimes, when I'm hosting a party, I'll take a panel out and keep it in my bedroom so I won't have to share my drugs with anyone. But inevitably, my friends will drop drinks and plates right through the empty space that remains. Something is supposed to be there, but it isn't. And I do care for appearances. In the bedroom, I'm picking out my outfit. My dresser drawers are arranged in neat compartments like a pillbox. A girlfriend once compared me to a cartoon character. It's because I have multiples of identical clothing items so that I can wear what's essentially a uniform, which changes from season to season. It's late April, so that means 5'10" skinny fit Levi's men's jeans and an American Apparel fine jersey crewneck pocket t-shirt underneath an American Apparel unisex flex fleece drop shoulder pullover crewneck sweater. Colors vary. I pull the jeans over the American Apparel baby rib boxer briefs that I'm already wearing. I haven't worn any other kind since I was a teen. Consistency like that helps me to believe that I haven't fully lost control. What chance do inner demons have against a man who's been wearing the same underwear for a decade? Sun overwhelms the 2 mismatched and undersized curtains that I've got hanging over the windows. I'm totally sun-fucked as I leave the room. I'm careful not to look at the little chalkboard when I grab my jacket off its hook, and then I lock up. The whole time I walk towards Lansdowne subway station, I'm hoping that I don't come across that ad on the subway again. I've even stopped garnishing my cocktails with lemons.
That was fantastic. I do think you read an earlier version of this story before, but it was way less fleshed out, and you've added like a number of really choice fucking lines to it. I love the. I just want to go back here. First of all, I love the inclusion of the ad in the piece, and I hope when you get this published, you're able to keep the ad in there because it adds so much. But the line I was looking for, if I wasn't funny, I'm pretty sure I'd be an incel. That's fucking gold.
I tell people that all the time. I say, like, if I had advice for incels, just like be funny. I wish I could talk to them all and just tell them that. I mean, look at how comedians look. It's disgusting. But yeah, thanks. And yeah, I realized I did read, but it was much earlier. It was second person. It was half the length, and it was something else. So yeah, now this one, I don't know if you saw, there's a link back, and it links back to the Florida Man at Expat.
I saw that. Yeah.
Now become more of a continuation of that. Whereas I have another thread of stories that I'm linking back to that are second person, which is something separate. So just keeping the cyber writing live. But thanks. It seems like there is good reactions here. So this is, I'm going to submit this soon. I just have to.
Hella epic reactions, dude. Fuck. That was amazing.
Well, thanks a lot. That means a lot coming from you and everyone else. I mean, I value all opinions equally. There's not one opinion I
I'm blown the fuck away. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, no, Josh, I think it's ready. I think it's ready.
Oh, yeah. Don't wait. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for reading, Josh. Next up is John. You with us still, John?
Yeah, I'm right here. All right, I'm gonna post a link. This is a short one. It's really new. I'm calling it Bros right now. I'm on the traffic island with the bros. The bros and me are downing brews. Bros out here brown bagging, concealed carry like we got permits. Bros don't ask permission, only forgiveness. On Bro Island, nobody gives a shh. Everybody loud AF, and there are no secrets. I'm on the island of the bros. I'm on Bro Island, but I could be anywhere. I could be an anonymous bro on any archipelago. Bro, why you got that mask on, bro? Masks keep things safe and secret. Masks are for everyone except bros. Except my bro's mask is different. It's a novelty. It's a rubber rooster. Full-on latex coxcomb. Bro, why you chicken? Why you got your cock out, bro? I'm pissing behind the bushes because it's secret. Bros keep their cocks secret. The stream of traffic flows around the island of the bros. Cars are moving in both directions on Sunset Boulevard. Island music plays from an Aerostar with a subwoofer set. The sun is setting on us bros. Us bros going nowhere. Bros were here before the traffic, and after the traffic passes, bros will be bros. Here, nowhere. That's no secret. My bro in the rubber rooster mask lives on the island, but I'm only visiting. I pay for his Four Loko. He loves the flavor gold. Bro, you loco. I know. It's no secret. He's an open book. I say, I'm a writer. Some bros still write books. I've never finished a story, but I keep that secret. Other bro says, me too, I'm a writer. I've seen him stocking shelves at Trader Bros. He's got a story coming out in the New Yorker. He says, hell yeah, bro, the New Yorker? He's got an agent, a New Yorker. What's an agent, bro? Yeah, bro, what's an agent? In Los Angeles, everything is loco and you meet different flavor bros. He treats it like a secret, his agent. The sun is down, but the sky is golden above the island of the bros. The stream of traffic on Sunset slows. All the locos are drunk. Other bro says his GF at home, hot AF, says, hairless, bro. The rooster builds his nest in secret. Not those bushes, bro. Me and other bro walk close, and our distance from the island grows. Bro, how I get an agent? I need to know the secret. I'll be stranded if I never know. I ask, bro, what's your secret? He says, can I kiss you, bro?
That's so good. I love the voice in this. And it's so funny. And the entire paragraph, the entire rooster cock paragraph is just impeccably structured. It's so fucking funny.
Thanks.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, is this something that like feel like, is this done, or is this the beginning of a larger piece, or is this tied in with other pieces you've been working on, or?
Well, it's done, but it's like not done. I'm still probably like tightening a couple things. But yeah, I just wrote it really fast, and I just kind of like bounce words off each other, and like the meaning can change, and you just kind of go with it from there.
Yeah, no, I love the fucking wordplay, and I love the like evolving wordplay over the course of some of these paragraphs, like in the cock rooster paragraph, where it just keeps going and it just keeps escalating, and that's awesome.
Brad, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you, John. Thanks for reading. Next up is Brandon.
All right.
Once again, I've seen a lot of people bouncing in and out of the waiting room here. I don't want to let them in unless I recognize the name, but if anyone has a friend or something waiting, just let me know. Just shoot me a message or something. Okay. Sorry, Brandon.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm actually not going to link anything this time. Kind of like last time I read, I'm just going to take you guys for the ride. I can't remember how long it's been, but it's starting to feel as though I've always had bad teeth. They ache constantly. They catch on the flesh on the inside of my cheeks and tear ragged sores. I'd say that I've grown accustomed to it, but the ache seems to be getting worse again. It doesn't stop at the gum line, it barely stops at the roots. The ache digs itself deeper and further into the bones that support the enamel. Sometimes it feels as though the ache is digging into my brain. It seems as if this has been a cycle on repeat lately. Every few weeks, the ache just builds and builds. Eventually, I succumb to the pain and collapse. I can usually hold it together for a few days, but it always ends the same. The ache becomes too all-consuming that I pass out. Then I wake up, curled into the fetal pose on my bed. The pillowcase stuck to my face with dried blood, all because of my bad teeth. It seems like an obvious solution, doesn't it? Just go to the dentist, right? It would be easy if I had insurance, or even if I just happened to have the funds to spare to pay the bill outright, but I don't have those things. How can I when I know that I'll predictably miss work every few weeks? When I know that it's only a matter of time before my bad teeth make my life into a living hell again? I can't hold a job for more than a few weeks. I have to keep on the move because I can't maintain rent. My bad teeth have turned me into a drifter. Hospitals and clinics ask too many questions anyhow. They always want to know when the last time I saw a dentist was. They always ask if I'm brushing regularly. They always ask if I floss. Of course I floss. If I didn't floss, they'd smell the rotting meat before I even made it to the exam room. But then again, the last time, I know exactly what happened, and it'll happen again. They took one look at me, listened to what I was telling them, and offered me an antibiotic and some prescription strength ibuprofen. I'm always running ragged. The whole ordeal has left me lean. Nothing satiates me. It can't when the wrong food sends my bad teeth into a rage that turns my stomach and forces me to expel its contents. I barely remember to shave more than once every other week. I haven't been able to afford a haircut in months, leaving a shaggy mane that I can barely be bothered to comb through unless I'm applying for temp work through the agency. They probably look at me the same way that the clinic did, like an addict, like a junkie. I've never done drugs a day in my life, but I'm starting to think it might not be the worst idea. It's been a little over 3 weeks since the last really bad episode subsided. My bad teeth are starting to ache again. They're starting to feel overlarge in my mouth. Every time this happens, it feels like I break off a part of one of my molars. And it always feels like a big one. I know that can't be true, or I wouldn't have any left at all with how long this has gone on, but I can still chew. I can still eat when the pain doesn't make it agonizing. But I know that they're getting more jagged. They aren't the flat chewing molars that they used to be. They're sharp, with more points than there should be, and I'm constantly biting the inside of my cheeks. I thought long and hard about tearing them out myself. I think that's a predictable end to the desperation I've been feeling. I've tried it a few times, getting absolutely plastered and trying to rip them out by the root using pliers. Even tried tying a string around the base and the other end to a doorknob and slamming the damn thing shut. But it never works the way that it should. It always just ends with me passing out and waking up with a bloody mouth and all of my bad teeth right where they were when I began. Hell, that blood is all I can taste these days. The longer this goes on, the more it seems like my mouth is always bloody. I find myself popping breath mint after breath mint. Gum isn't an option. All that does is force air in between my bad teeth. That's a pain I don't want and don't need. The mints cover up the stench of the rot, but they barely hide the iron smell. My breath is like a cup of mouthwash filled with pennies. I guess it beats the alternative. I know that's not an option now. If my guess is right, I've got about 2 days left until my bad teeth overwhelm me and leave me a disgusting mess. So I do the only thing I can think of doing. I put on my jeans and an old gray t-shirt, throw on my leather jacket, pull my hair back to the base of my head as neatly as I can manage, and head downstairs toward the street. The vivid lights from the lamps casting a ghastly blue from the new LEDs they converted to 2 weeks ago. Between that and the dim white of the rounded moon peeking through the clouds overhead, the snow on the ground seems far more calming than it should be. I walk down 2 blocks to the greenhouse, a shitty little dive bar that isn't exactly known for polite company. It was the only place where I didn't feel out of place anymore. The people there looked like me. Ragged, hard. Half of them had bad teeth too. I pushed open the door and ducked inside, shouldering my way to the bar and ordering a shot of whiskey and a silver bullet. I always hated Coors, but it made it easier to chug the cheap beer down when I knew I wouldn't enjoy it. A little liquid courage for a last-ditch effort. I turned from the bar and measured the crowd. I casually pushed away from the stool and moved across the room until knocking my shoulder into a guy in the most stereotypical biker jacket I've ever seen. You know the type. Bald head, neck tattoos. I smile internally as I see his beer fall to the floor. He shoves me. I shove back. Crowd forms a circle. He takes a swing and connects. I feel my jaw pulsate for a moment and the ache subsides beneath a different pain. I sprawl to the floor, running my tongue across my bad teeth. All still present and accounted for. Fuck. I push myself to my feet and rush at him, landing a cheap shot to his shin. Another heavy right slams into my cheekbone and sends me reeling again. Another quick tongue check. Not enough. The bartender yells at us to take it outside. I gladly oblige. In the dim outdoor light, I rush him as soon as he passes the door. A flurry of overhead strikes with the heel of my fist, but he flings me off of him like a leaf. Because I've gotten leaner than I thought. I stumble, and before I regain my footing, his shoulder slams into my chest and knocks me to the ground. For a moment, I feel nothing but punch after punch. My jaw aches, my face aches, everything is fire, everything is pain, everything is breaking apart. Morning comes. I wake up curled in a fetal pose in my bed. My pillowcase is stuck to the stubble of my 2-week beard with blood. I swear it always feels like the stubble is longer after a sleep like that. I pry it off of me and force myself to sit. My brain pounds inside my skull. I run my tongue across my teeth. All present and accounted for. I let out a long, ragged, frustrated breath and force myself to stagger to the kitchen. I idly sweep the butcher's knife from preparing last night's dinner into the sink and flick on the faucet to fill the pot for my morning coffee. I go to the fridge and pull out the plate with the freshly carved steak and head to the stove. The kitchen is a mess. It's always a mess when it gets this bad. I can't focus enough to clean when my bad teeth start to take hold of my life. I look over to the doorway to the living room. The biker from last night is propped up against the frame, the stump of his left leg awkwardly jutting out beneath him as I hear the meat start to squeal in the searing hot pan. If my teeth can still tear through sinew and break bones when they need to, are they really that bad? The end.
There is nothing in this world as viscerally disturbing as the idea of teeth pain. There's nothing that like gets that immediate knee-jerk, like unconscious like response to the degree that thinking about like a toothache does. You're thinking about a tooth falling out or being removed. So you got them feels for sure.
But that's a very ancient pain. They say that like half of all suffering used to be tooth pain because there were no dentists.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I always really love how you're able to blend like, you know, like standard horror tropes with like the like very like day-to-day banal horrors of just like, you know, living.
Oh yeah, that's
the best
real
horror.
fucking good. I also have like horrible fucking phobia of dentistry, so I feel that.
Oh, I hear that.
The tooth deal, pretty bad.
Yeah. All right,
Thank you,
Brian.
thank you.
Oh, sorry, Brandon. So, Brian, you're up next.
Right on. So how you doing, Will?
Not bad. How are you doing? It's your
Good,
first
man.
time here, right? Your first time reading.
Yeah, I wanted to read this. This is something that is a work in progress. You'll never guess where I'm currently living, Will. I think you could guess this.
I know you used to live in New Hampshire because I used to live in New Hampshire too, and we had a discussion about that when you submitted your Seaside Motel piece. But I don't know, where are you at now?
Well, I'm living in a hotel, which is appropriate because everything I published with you is about, well, living in a hotel or hotel related.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I kind of have a thing with hotels. It's my muse.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this came to me while I was in a hotel in Phoenix. So I wanted to, like I said, it's a bit early and raw, but you know that we've all had that feeling of you just want the nuclear missile to hit. You're just looking around you, you're sizing it up, and you want the nuke to come.
Yeah.
So this is related, sort of. This is about a interestingly enough, because we just had that fucked up weather in the South. This is about a freak snowstorm. It's Phoenix, Arizona. So, and we have two star-crossed characters. I'd say most of my stories, it's kind of like Seinfeldian, where these things, at the very end, it all comes together, these little chapters. So this is just the beginning, but here we go. Part 1. D. Tyson Shaw sat on a bench having a smoke when the first snowflake hit him. "Hey, my brother, spare some change?" The other man pretended not to hear D. Tyson. He stared down at his phone as he made his way to the parking lot. A cold wind blew a palm husk off a tree. The brown, fibrous object skittered and scraped noisily on the concrete. Tyson drew his parka up around his neck and shivered. The unseasonable cold had been building the last couple of days. Things felt different. Something was off. The snowflake confirmed it. The parking lot was almost empty. Few people were out and about. Many of the shops had closed early. He counted the change in his cup. $3.38. Enough to buy a slice of pizza. He shuffled over to the pizza shop, but the door was locked. Inside, a boy mopped and stacked chairs. The TV was on. De Tyson held his face up to the glass and tried to make out what was on the screen. The local Fox channel broadcasted the 5:30 news. Weatherwoman Corrine Hay stood in front of a map of Arizona. The map zoomed into the greater Phoenix area with the headline, "Valley of the Snow." The weather is the weather, but Corrine managed to put her spin on it. The way, with a sweep of the hand, like a witch performing a divination, she made the clouds move across the state. De Tyson watched the boy. He had a kind face. You can tell how somebody really is with the sound off. Words are a magician's spell. Through the silent glass of the pizza shop and the CVS and the Target and the Bed Bath & Beyond, De Tyson saw how they were, these marionettes, these silhouettes of people, these shadows passing in and out of his life like little thunderstorms moving across the valley. The boy saw De Tyson standing there. He unlocked the door and brought him a couple of slices wrapped in foil. "Here you go, dude." "Thank you, my brother. What's this about, snow?" "Big storm's on the way. Supposed to be the most snow in the city's history. People are freaking out, man. Haven't you heard? Kareem predicted 6 to 8 inches of snow in Midtown Phoenix and 12 to 14 inches in the foothills. He needed to get out of the elements. The shelters might have expanded capacity on such a cold night. There might also be heating stations and supplies set up outside the Human Services campus. But he refused to stay at a shelter. He couldn't stand the smell of the place, the smell of feet and body odor and bouillon, the snarling hyenas looking for the smallest vulnerability in you, the sullen-faced staff who grinned in condescending benevolence, subtly reminding you that you were one of the lucky ones with a bed and a hot meal. "Sing for your supper, my boy! Sing!" their faces said. De Tyson would not sing for them. He was a free man, as much as any man can be free. He was not a tent hobo or a shopping cart hobo. He carried his few possessions in a military surplus backpack and slept wherever he could, as far away from the others as possible. But you have to serve somebody. De Tyson served the nameless, faceless public. They dropped a coin in his cup and went on their way. A coin in his cup was a sin expiated. He stood in the corner with his palms out, a dirty-faced, dreadlocked Jesus, sacrificing for their sins. Even if they didn't know what their sins were, they knew that they had sinned. De Tyson thanked the boy for the pizza and went on his way. He picked through old cigarette butts in an ashtray. He found a couple of good ones, but they were wet from the snow. He put them in a plastic baggie in his parka to dry. In the time it took him to have a smoke, the ashtray filled with fluffy white snow. The storm picked up momentum. At first, the flakes melted on contact and didn't amount to anything. Any individual flake was meaningless. It could be crushed under your thumb. But 1,000 flakes, 10,000 flakes, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000 flakes, they were a problem. Death by 1,000 pinpricks. Death by 1,000,000,000 snowflakes. It was going to be a long night. De Tyson had never seen snow before. He was a Southern Cali boy, born and raised. Los Angeles in the 70s was the place to be. The beach, the sun, the girls, and the handouts. Who could forget the handouts? Back in LA's heyday, he could spend a couple of hours begging downtown and the rest of the day relaxing on the beach in Santa Monica, watching the rollers come in. Those were the golden days of bumming. But the LA scene was beat. People were leaving LA and coming to Phoenix, pushing further into the interior, deeper into the desert, looking for one more frontier on this cursed continent, and so to the most accursed spot, the Great Basin, the Big Empty, building housing developments and strip malls on the invisible graveyards of Aboriginal demons. Things go to the desert to die. The death drives push us into the final frontier, the frontier of our unraveling, the desert, which is already dead and waiting patient as death, while its sands creep in slow motion over the city. The desert makes one hard, but also soft, soft-headed. The desert is a self-contained world. You almost forget about the existence of forests and beaches and this barbarian invader from the north called snow. The earliest religions were based on sun worship, and the old instinct is alive and well among the chapped-lipped sons and daughters of Phoenix, the children of the sun, the valley of the sun, the valley of death. But the snow? What strange God is this? Coldness is not God, but the absence of God. The godless cold held fast against his skin and shocked him with its numbing indifference. The snowflakes were silent pinpricks of cold uncaring, destroying themselves against the warmth of his body. The body is a little sun, standing in stupid defiance of the monstrously cold and inhuman universe. Part 2. Craig Benton came around the bend and hammered the brakes when he saw the wall of taillights. The back end of his Toyota Tacoma swung to the left and back to the right as the 37-inch off-road tires searched for grip. He was surprised he'd made it this far. He should have stayed another night in Sedona and let the storm pass. Not that the snow worried him. It was the other drivers you had to worry about. All it took was one asshat going off the road to back things up for miles. And these snowbirds, these desert rats, could barely drive in a rainstorm, never mind a record-setting snowstorm. An extra night in Sedona wouldn't have killed him. He was eager, though, to keep heading south, to Phoenix, Tucson, and the border crossing at Nogales. Craig was going all the way to Patagonia. That was never the original plan, but in a crystalline haze of red rock and desert juniper, cypress and Mormon tea and prickly pear cacti, he'd had a thought, a vision, and the thought grew legs. It grew arms and a head and set up residence like a fetus inside him. He was pregnant with the thought of blazing straight down through the godforsaken continent to Patagonia. Patagonia, a magical word. Abracadabra, Patagonia. The West he'd seen. The mountains, the rivers, the canyons, the deserts, the old mining towns. Mountains, mountains, and more mountains. Mountains in the West are like temples in China. You've seen one, you've seen them all. The West was no longer a living place to him. It was one big museum where people paid their entry fees and scuttled around to read the placards and snap a couple of photographs. There was a terrible mindlessness to this place that slowly filled you with this emptiness. At Bryce Canyon, he had the overwhelming urge to throw himself over the pink granite cliffs into the rock-spired amphitheater. What stopped him was the thought that nobody would care. He'd be turned into a hoodoo, sprouting out of the canyon floor, and they'd slap an interpretational plaque explaining on how this day in history, Craig Benton of New Haven, Connecticut, was turned into a pillar of stone by indigenous devils. The world would the tourists would pose and get their shots and then move on the trail to the next site. He came out west looking for inspiration, and he'd found it all right. The inspiration to become a fluffy cloud, a clump of sagebrush, a column of rock. Yes, it was beautiful, but also inhuman, deadly inhuman. And the sun and the heat and the dust and the distance, he felt the malevolent will set against his. Perhaps it was a bad idea to build an empire on an Indian graveyard. It all started to go bad for the race when we left the safe cover of the East Coast and ventured forth into these demon-haunted lands. They called to us asleep in our feather beds, promising wealth beyond our wildest reckoning. But there was a price to pay. These lands gave us the riches we sought, and in the process cursed us. We were cursed to keep wandering the wastelands, forever in search of that which was lost. Craig hit scan on the FM radio and the dial jumped forward. Jackknife semi-truck southbound on the 51. Traffic stalled for miles. Urging people to stay in their vehicles. Avoid travel. Historic snowfall. Foot or more expected across the valley. City paralyzed. The highway was totally shut down until the wreck could be cleared. He sat there idling in the silent snow, his truck's heater blowing a gasoline-tinged breeze across his face. What was he doing here? He didn't belong in this place. He belonged in the hamlets and suburbs of his youth, familiar and comfortable and not the least bit inspiring, but suffused with meaning. He knew that men are happier in a homeland. He knew this Patagonia talk was a rattling of chains. But once you break away, you can't go back. Going back is death. Even if you go back, you never return. You split off molecularly. Half of you becomes a ghost and haunts your imagination. You enter a purgatory and roast for eternity on the spit of your half-doings. You are trapped in a liminal space of becoming, where nothing is resolved. There was no going back. He had to keep pushing it. He had to break the curse. Connecticut was the land of his father, and his father before him, and his father before him, ad nauseum. A line of biblical begettings as long and hoary as the good book itself. There was meaning there, but no magic. Wisdom, but no divine inspiration. No abracadabra. No clicking your heels and going to Patagonia. Craig couldn't live in a world without magic. It is not enough to believe in miracles. You must say the magic words, walk out your front door and never look back. Abracadabra, Patagonia. Craig had made his choice. He had to keep pushing it. He had to keep moving south. He had to give birth to the vision that grew inside of him each passing mile. Mexico, Guatemala, Panama, Ecuador, Bolivia, Argentina, Patagonia. These places might not even be real. He might fall off the edge of the earth the way the early explorers feared. So be it. There was no going back. Patagonia. That's all I got.
Holy shit, that was fantastic. Listening to that, I realized one thing that I really love about your writing is it's romantic, but it's never sentimental and it's never false, right? Which I think is really hard to fucking pull off, because I think it's relatively easy to do good writing that's somewhat like staid and restrained and cautious, right? But oftentimes when people try to write something that like evokes kind of romantic or nostalgic feeling, it ends up seeming either cliched or like overly sentimental or like bullshit, right? And your writing doesn't. And if you like some of the like really great novelists, like Nabokov is like the master of writing romantic fiction that gives you those good romantic feels, but never lies to you except when the narrator is lying to you and it's lying consciously. And your writing has that same kind of vibe where you're just like, you get this sense of this kind of like, in this case, like this sort of vast and like mystical West, but it never feels like you're writing a fantasy story, right? It never feels like you're trying to bullshit us. And it was just fucking fantastic. I love that piece.
I think I'm dark and cynical enough to like it somehow offsets the wide-eyed romanticism, right? those forces are always sort of competing for my attention. Like, wow, look at that, that's amazing. And then a second later, it's like, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think those forces, like the conflict between those forces is at work in a lot of like really fucking great literature. And you got that here. You have that. And I think like homelessness is a really challenging thing to write about because people really want like to the experience of being homeless to somehow be noble or tragic instead of just like degrading, right, and humiliating. And I think you don't fall into any of those traps here with that piece either, you know. It's just a fantastic piece. Thank you so much for reading, Brian.
Well, my pleasure, buddy.
Yeah. Next up, Joshua. And I think, Joshua, you're the last scheduled reader for tonight. So if anyone would like to read during the open mic, you can just put it in the chat, and Rudy and I will be watching the chat. You with us, Joshua?
Yeah. You guys can hear me all right? Because I'm like cupping my phone in my hands.
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right. This is an occurrence. A graduate student in literature had a dream about Ambrose Bierce. The dream was going to be about Bierce or his mother. He'd left the university due to dramatic events that had disrupted his life. A dream is a process of life. When you live more, you dream in proportion. He was in for vivid dreams. In the dream about Ambrose Bierce, he sat at his favorite bar, which was by the apartment he shared with other graduate students. The apartment was by the renowned California University. He would say that what he did there was mostly provide cheap intellectual labor for an associate professor who was the true protege of his advisor. Publish and perish was the motto of his year. The graduate student attended that bar like he'd once attended office hours, and he was full of a passion he wanted to test against the authority. In the dream, he and Ambrose Bierce sat on flat, square stools there, beside one another. The bar was a sticky, wooden place with necessary low lighting. The graduate student and Ambrose Bierce both leaned as little of themselves against the bar as they could, while sitting secure on the backless stools. The graduate student and Ambrose Bierce drank brown without being able to deplete the glass. This was almost normal. The bar made drinks mostly of chipped ice. Brown suffused it like a dark form of light. There was a McDonald's bag on the bar between them. The top was tightly rolled and the paper grease spotted. It was neither of theirs. It had no significance. Ambrose Bierce has the kind of face you only see in 19th century photos. The graduate student thought, what happened to that variety of face? It was hard to describe. For once, the graduate student didn't postulate, even internally, because Ambrose Bierce was speaking. Ambrose Bierce spoke entirely in aphorisms. He spoke them directly into the wall of bottled liquor without any human reference to the graduate student. Religion, a daughter of hope and fear, explaining to ignorance the nature of the unknowable. American, those who undertake until undertaken. Ambrose Bierce, as he spoke, struck the graduate student as handsome, if a little preposterous, sitting there in his own speaking. Ambrose Bierce wore a red bow tie and a mustache that both stuck out above a pressed white shirt with pointy collars that had once been stiff but were then crushed soft. Egotist, a person of low taste, more interested in himself than in me. True love. Yes. No, wait. Shit. Yes. Malefactor. The chief factor in the progress of the human race. The graduate student was confused. Ambrose Bierce did not say shit in print. Next, in the dream, the graduate student exited the bar. There was an unpaved road, rounding. He walked down the road in the moonlight, his boots crunching the pea gravel. He didn't own boots, only sneakers and Oxfords, but he wore boots. He had something rough on his torso, with buttons that shone. He kept walking on a rounding road. These facts didn't really disrupt, as they don't in dreams. The graduate student came to a railway bridge, something from the background of a painting. A rope hung loose from stout crossed timber. The air shifted, the rope swayed. Because it was a dream, and because he was a graduate student in literature, visual facts took on a chesty and unexpected potency. He became so excited, he woke up. He sat in the low bed he chose at an IKEA when he was in his 20s, in the room he decorated in horror movie and band posters as a teenager. It was dark, and then his eyes adjusted to the faint orange light. It was diffused from the nightlight his parents bought him from when he was a little kid. It was a red hot air balloon plugged into a socket, paled by time and his loving handling of the balloon. He calmed. He got up and went downstairs through the house he had grown in. He went through the dining room. There he went past the cup-ringed oak table where he spent hundreds of hours attaining his indictments, shortcomings, and achievements. The table was like a word repeated until it became phonetics. He didn't really notice it. He didn't turn on the light. He got a glass. He opened the fridge. He poured himself a glass of milk in the illumination from the open fridge. He noticed the blue in the thin white of the lit milk. His parents had skim, always skim. He sipped it and made a face at how watery it was. Memory of milk more than milk. He walked through the kitchen and opened the sliding back door. He stepped out into the open night air. A cricket was chirping. Another cricket began to chirp. His eyes adjusted to the outer dark. Wow, he thought. His parents had let the yard go after. But this was one way to look at it, he thought. What, after all, is even a backyard, if not something you can do with? The American dream, he thought. Doing whatever the fuck you want. What everyone thinks about it can get fucked. The grass was as deep as his waist. It filled the lot from corner to fence corner. He breathed in. The fresh spring smell of it filled his breathing. And one more cricket began chirping, and then another. The air with rising intensity to the rhythm of his breathing, filled with the sound of crickets. There was a gentle movement, a swaying. In the moonlight, the grass was almost like white wheat. It made a sound like the white, or like the sound of wheat. The weeds' repellently bristled foliage, their wild, flossy, and cottony flowering, made that roughness like wheat stalks, wheat heads. The length, the crisp, papery blading, holding and drooping, the fibrous tubing of the grass. He noticed them.
Yo, this shit is boring.
He closed his eyes. He listened to the grass and the crickets, the sounds in the opposing waves, the soft pistons slowly pumping. He opened his eyes. He looked out at the long grass, felt the thick sounds of the cricket, looked at his fence and his neighbor's fences, the night air, the suburban treetops swaying, and the sky, its black dotted by the many lights of other places coming through immense mathematical distance. Anything, he thought, anything. He woke up. He'd been in another dream. He didn't know where he was. He might be drunk. It was light blue in the room, early morning. He didn't feel good. He wanted to go back into the heaviness of sleep, not the sharpness of being awake, aware, thinking things through. He turned and closed his eyes. He tried to think back into his dream. If the first dream was Bierce, he thought, the second was Tolstoy. He was thinking then of the wheat-like grass and the sky and regeneration. He wasn't going to sleep. He sat up. He was in the guest bedroom. He was drunk. First one, then the other. His parents had died months ago.
Oh wow, that was so good. What I really loved about it was like the very different structure and the very different like style of writing in the two dreams. Like it is really like remarkable. Like I love how the first one was structured almost like completely around Bierce's aphorisms and had that same like sort of repetitive but also like rapid clip to it, right? Where you're moving, and it was reflective of like Bierce's style too, and how the second one was so like meditative and soft. And we've all had like those two different kinds of dreams, and I think like in the prose here you really captured that kind of contrast, you know? That was a wonderful piece. Thank you. So next, someone had asked to read iPad 84. Griffin, I think, who's a friend of yours. I'm not sure of the name, but iPad 84 had asked to read.
I believe Eric had asked.
Yeah, that's me. I'm known as Pop or Mulligyoki.
Okay. Sorry, just 1 second. Rudy, you had said something?
Yeah, Eric had asked to read too, I think.
Eric, okay. So
Eric is a friend of mine. So
yeah, hey.
So I one way or the other, I don't really care.
Yeah, no, Pup, is that right, Pup? No, sorry.
George is better.
George, okay, George.
I just have lots of pseudonyms.
George, you can go first, and then Eric, you can go after George.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. Let me just pull it up. So yeah, this is just from when I was in Pristina, in Kosovo. So it's very short, and it's part of a larger piece. But anyway, this building was erected in 1947 on the eve of Marshal Tito's break with Stalin in Pristina, under the Yugoslav dictum "Uniste stari, graditi novi," roughly, destroy the old, build the new. It was built over the ruins of a Jewish home that had been demolished by the SS. It contains the body, a 3-meter wide spherical mass of undifferentiated sentient flesh, which controls our thoughts, but speaks only in Albanian. Even during revolts and wars, this house has stood as a testament to Kosovar nationality and the proud traditions of the Albanian people who erected it, as well as the body which controls our thoughts and remains angry. A fine example of early or rather proto-brutalist architecture, its suburban setting, so I can't even pronounce this bit, Paku Igermisha continues to serve as an example to all of the world. In spite of results, wars, and ethnic violence in general, the body has valiantly gone on to, and we will believe go on to, be the only thing, the only living force which sustains our belief in the body. Chaos may ensue, empires may crumble, but this building and the body is how it will go on. Yeah, and that's me.
That was really good. That was really excellent. I see Griffin just did the Yonk shout out. So is this going to be appearing in the next issue?
It's going to be appearing as a. It's going to be in Yonk, but it's going to be in even more complicated format.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he skipped most of the footnote.
I love footnotes.
I think that was actually one of the footnotes of a footnote within a footnote.
It's one of the footnotes, but it's also part of the thing. It's so. I'm basically parodying David Foster Wallace to some extent because I really dislike David Foster Wallace personally.
You can, oh good, Sam's not here. Sam and I have gotten into fights about, he is a huge
I'm here.
Oh,
That's
you're
fine.
here. Hi, Sam.
Hey.
Are you gonna want to fight Charge over David Foster Wallace tonight?
That's cool.
That's cool. Okay.
Oh, you can call me Gyorky, by the way. I would prefer not that. The George thing. I hate my name.
Okay, Yorkie.
Gyorky or Pop.
Okay. Pop. Okay. So, but no, I really like it when like pieces blend, like there's genre stuff in here, right? And that's what like a lot of these Yonk pieces do incredibly well is they're genre pieces, but they're genre pieces like fucking nothing you've seen before because they integrate stuff from cultures that don't usually get included in genre stuff or like pop culture stuff.
Kosovo doesn't really get much of a recognition.
Yeah, much attention. Exactly. No, but they're always so like alienating and weird and wonderful and yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to the next issue. I'm hyped for this shit. Eric.
Yeah, okay. So this is also from the next issue of Yonk. A bunch of us just decided to hop in and preview what we had coming up. So
awesome.
Yeah, this is a short story. It's called Unterirdischen Menschen. Yeah. In June 2025, when the Earth cracked open, we discovered the secrets it had hidden from us. Deep we went into the future, and at the bottom found our ancestors, perhaps, our creators, something deep beyond ourselves. We cannot tell still what they are. They cannot speak to us. They are sleeping within their chambers, floating in green liquid contained within glass, species that only superficially resembles men. The sleepers are giant, twice as tall as any man, with 6 closed eyes and skin that looks like gray scales. If they had been walking, their arms would have reached their knees. We knew not how they communicated, for they had no mouths that we could see. Wires pierced their bodies. These were beings that could not exist, our scientists told us. They could not be alive. But in the liquid they breathed, in their dreaming sleep they shuddered. 10,000? 100,000? We spent months exploring the tunnels and still could not find an end. only cages and closed computer terminals. The machines glowed red with letters we had never seen before and could not understand. They had no keyboards, no reactions to touch, only faceless screens installed in the wall. We ripped one out and examined its guts. Whatever these people were, their electronic ways were completely alien to ours, made not of circuitry but glowing paths of liquid. Everything in the tunnels was silent to us. We could only wonder and wonder. Many theories were proposed. All were tidy, neat, consistent, but none could explain what we saw. Anyone who went down into the tunnels knew that whatever they beheld was beyond something that mankind could conceptualize. We can only imagine a world like the ones we knew, a world that these ancient beings did not belong to. To call them an ancient offshoot of the genus Homo, or an alien species, or gods, how could they be any of these things? They could only be what they were. I could have gone mad in these tunnels. Many did. The deeper we went, the more the question of this place whispered into the ears of the explorers. Some cracked when they realized they had traveled so deep into the earth that they should have been traveling through magma. Others couldn't bear it when they tried to leave and found the entrances they had used gone, and in their places only other tunnels rising higher and higher. Some simply disappeared and we did not speak of them again. To stay sane, we had to compartmentalize. We drank water from underground lakes and ate the shell-covered creatures that crawled on the walls and floor. Nothing the biologists with us had ever seen before, but they didn't kill us. Resources are shockingly plentiful here. Everything we need to live until we find a way out or waste away. Few people have suggested, perhaps as a joke, that we try cracking open a tube and eating the creature inside. Perhaps it will be more flavorful than the crustaceans, but the glass, if it is glass, is too difficult to break. Their cells are impenetrable. Have I seen the sleepers looking at me? I must admit I have. Sometimes I will turn around and see a cracked open eye that closes as quickly as I can glance at it. When I explore the tunnels away from the group, I feel as if I'm not alone. It's a comforting feeling. I do not believe that these beings wish to hurt us. I don't believe they wish to help us either. Whatever this project was, it was constructed without even the idea of humanity in mind. Would you consider the rats when tearing apart the earth to build a skyscraper? My most treasured possession is a handheld device I found at the foot of one of the cages. The others do not know about it. I slipped it carefully into my jacket and examine it only when I am alone. As far as I can tell, I'm the only one who has been able to access their technology to this level. I do not know what I'm doing as I attempt to decipher it. I have been unable to uncover even one of the machine's secrets. If it has a language for me, I cannot see it. All it displays are sparks of motion, twisting spirals, lines that seem to cut through space as they project in the air in front of me. Sometimes I think I see meaning in them, but it dances away from me like a teasing lover. All I can do is admire its form. The world inside is inaccessible to me. I think Xavier, our doctor, is touching the edge of madness. He spends as much time as possible fiddling with the computer terminals on the walls. He feels the need to examine each one in every detail, as if by doing so he might be able to find the one that is more to us than a hunk of metal. Occasionally one will make a noise when he taps it, and he becomes excited like a wild dog, insisting that he's finally made the discovery that will unlock all of this. And then, after hours of work more, he must admit that perhaps it was a coincidence that the activity was in no way related to his interaction. The machines move with their own order. We are inconsequential to them. Willow is a geologist with a husband and 2 children at home. She doesn't talk about them anymore. When I asked her if she was worried, she did not even seem to remember their existence. For her, the medals and lesions on the wall are more interesting than anything she might have left behind. Family was a burden, these are secrets. I can't claim to judge her. There was a reason I always avoided romantic ties, but I can't help but think how much she seemed to miss them when we first descended. She only took to the job, she said, because her husbands couldn't work and they need the money. Are they starving now, I wonder? While she's gone, will anyone save them? Nobody saved the people I killed. Yes, I admitted I'm a murderer. It was for a good cause. As I said, this place brings out the madness in people, and it is not always so peaceful as Willow's or Xavier's. Too many whose names I don't respect enough to remember got into their heads that the sleepers wanted a blood sacrifice. In the middle of the night, they kidnapped one of our nursing team and dragged him away, and when we found them after a day of searching in the tunnels, the poor RN's guts and skins were, well, we couldn't call them his anymore. We captured the killers quick, but then spent too long arguing about what to do with them, and after 30 minutes, I picked up a nearby rock and started caving in their skulls. Some people protested, but nobody stopped me. Some of them started avoiding me from then on, but for now it seems as though they've mostly forgotten about the whole business. Better things to care about, I suppose. Before we were 5 groups, now we are 1. We came upon each other slowly, our whittled down numbers coming together for care and safety. We put aside distrust and conflicting goals, we united. Chinese and American and Japanese and Russian and Nigerian. Barely able to speak to one another, many of us, but still we remain close together. For what purpose? The same reason any group of people binds itself, I would guess. To survive, to live with less fear. These tunnels are filled with fear, and the more of us there are, the more we can maintain the illusion of the danger's non-existence. We feel human while surrounded by the bodies of the ancients.
We found a computer terminal that was accessible recently, though it took many hours before we understood how it worked. We came across it, and on a screen it was a display of the new time, a scrolling series of strange red letters. Did not respond to our attempts to explore it further until one linguist absent-mindedly made a hand motion in front of it. After many more hours of work, we discovered the approximate distance and speed needed to command the machine, though we could only flail our hands in front of it with wild uncertainty. The pictures we discovered inside of it were schematics, perhaps, but none we could understand. There were diagrams that appeared to detail the anatomy of the systematic creatures. For the first time in months, we felt like we had accomplished something. We took many records and have spent all of the night since probing the meaning of the displays. Madness, more madness. One of us, not even a linguist, claims that he has understood the meaning of the words. The understanding came to him in a dream. He can now look at them as easily as he would his native tongue. The words, he says, prove that none of what surrounds us is real, that we have somehow traveled into a world beyond our own, one that never should have existed, that it is created from our own minds and fears. The creatures are us, he says. Their skin is ours, their blood is ours, their flesh is ours. They're what will become once our minds have opened themselves up beyond the shackles of Nuterra. He was, if I remember, a Catholic, but he says we are in a place beyond God, an accident of creation that can no longer be taken back, the underworld for those who will not be damned or saved, the place where the souls travel that have been freed from enslavement to the fallen world. It is the Eden we created. Some believe him. I have come to believe this place is, if not a test, a reckoning. It's a place we go to receive judgment for ourselves. The shape of it doesn't matter. The creatures in the tanks don't matter. It could have been any sort of maze to trap us, and its purpose would have remained unchanged. Sorry, someone said something? Okay. It would have been any sort of maze to trap us, and its purpose would have remained unchanged. The things attached to the walls are little more than decorations, one placed by an artist that could not even consider mad or existent. Come to us, it said, and we came. Go there, we said to ourselves, and we went. Did we need reasons? Were the delusions of public safety, of scientific discovery, of political might our true motivation? Would we have not arrived here all the same? If we had never discovered it, would we have found something else? This place seems gentler when I imagine it as inevitable. We came upon an open, empty container. We have not found the creature that lived inside. Witness this rotting body. Witness the decay of the escaped prisoner. See how it lies crumpled in the soil like a used rag. Force yourself to kneel and feel its skin, and dip your fingers in its blood and press into its flesh. Tell the others to join you. Tell them not to be afraid. Did not come to hurt us. Perhaps it was as scared as we. Perhaps these tunnels are not made for it either. Perhaps if you bring your ear close enough, you can hear its last thoughts. Perhaps its spirit is still lurking with us, lurking within the crowd, watching us commit defilement. Deeper into the caves we descend, and the light grows dim. Many have turned back. Few remain. The earth is soft and warm beneath our feet. The insects on the floor scatter from our steps. I feel the fear of the rest, but I have the drum of a fearless beating heart. The eyes in the tanks are open. They are following our steps. Their limbs are moving gently. Hands are pressed against the inside of glass. There is no light beneath us. All is quiet but my beating heart. I will not die today. I am not afraid. I will. It is only me and the two others left, and we stand before the king, and he is glorious, and we are nothing. He is everywhere, in the walls, in the earth, in the air that strokes our flesh. He turns and sees, but does not look at us. He does not need to look at us. His 1,000 eyes are black, and inside each one of them is a soul, and inside each soul there is a cry.
I got a question.
Nigga fucking in a Tesla, nigga rubbing on my thighs with some ketchup. Bitch, I'm gay, so you know that I am next up. I got dildos like I lube. What you want, son? My dick small.
Sorry, just a second. I'm trying to find him. There he is. Sorry about that. Continue.
No, that's fine. Okay. His 1,000 eyes are black, and inside each one of them is a soul, and inside each soul there is a cry for forgiveness he will not give. I would like to be an eye. The others are too afraid to step forward with me. I don't think they recognize what this thing is. It is not a man or a beast or god, but a type of secret. It's a silent aleph, too terrible for the beginning of the sacred book. I take another step, but the king does not stir. Let me be with you, king. Let me reside within your halls. The others have abandoned you, but you may take me up and seal me in your glass and keep me forever in your kingdom. I hear your voice, but I do not understand. I kneel before and inside of you. I will not leave this place. I do not fear your sacred touch. Touch me, touch me, touch me. Let me become. And that's it.
Oh, well, I love a good descent into madness piece.
Yeah, thank you.
And you really captured that here. That was like epic in every sense of the word, just like in terms of scope, in terms of tone, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for reading, Eric.
Yeah, I think I hope I said this in the secret Yonk chat, but I love how it takes the like all these like Lovecraft tropes, but instead of like giving up and not describing anything like Lovecraft, it really like focuses on the sensory experience of the descent into madness.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
absolutely. That's a
Yeah.
good way to put it. Yeah, thank you so much for reading, Eric.
Thank you.
Kirby, I think, who is also, I believe, a Yonk contributor, wanted to read next.
Yeah, no, I'm sure because I heard we were Yonk posting.
Will, I had one question.
Yeah.
If there are DMs between people within this,
oh no,
you can't read them, can you?
I can't. Now I'm going to want to. No, Josh, I don't know. I've never actually looked at. I don't post the logs. I don't read the logs.
Oh, okay, good.
Don't worry. Whatever scandalous things you're saying about me or others, or
No, it wasn't about. It was just it's a matter of intimacy. I would say it's an intimate matter.
Oh, it is. Okay, Josh, don't worry about it.
As far as
sorry
I
about
know,
that.
the logs disappear when you quit the thing, when you leave the chat. Or
That's all I wanted to hear. That's great.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm screenshotting it for my future enjoyment, but yeah.
Unless you're consciously saving the logs, or unless William
Wait,
did turn on.
do you mean like logs on Discord?
The Zoom logs.
There's
Oh,
chat
okay,
logs,
yeah.
in Zoom, but I wouldn't. I'm not.
No, that's true. That's true, as far as I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I generally just look at the video. The folder that has the video in it has a bunch of other files too, but I don't even bother to look at them, so I'm not sure what's in there.
Yeah, no need to look there.
Okay. All right, Josh. Anyway, Kirby, sorry about that.
No worries, no worries.
So, is this a piece that's going to be featured in Yonk as well?
Yeah. So, yeah, this will be coming out with all the rest of the Yonk pieces on the first.
Cool. It's all yours then.
All right. Piece is titled "Gotta Catch 'Em All." Andrew is a grass type guy. Andrew is a grass type guy, known for his appreciation of nature and Boy Scout level survival skills. Andrew is a guy great for outdoor activities. However, he is a pacifist at heart, so training him for tournaments is a difficult task. Andrew was the first guy you caught in high school. You were a little late compared to most trainers, but you were happy you didn't just throw a guy capsule at the first one you came across. He was a little needy, but so were you. The both of you spent a lot of time together, taking walks through the park or cuddling next to a bonfire late at night. When it wasn't just the two of you, Marissa and Kylie would join with their guys. There wasn't much training, mostly just goofing off like high schoolers do. Sure, you've heard the stories of people challenging gyms at age 12, but you didn't need to rush. You were happy spending time with your Andrew. He was a good first guy. You released Andrew back into the wild when you went to university. He was a Kanto region guy, and you were always a Galar region girl. Besides, he was going to be underleveled anyways. Chase is a fire type guy. Chase is namely recognized for his passion for soccer and woodworking. He has an aggressive streak, which is not ideal for inexperienced trainers. However, mastery of his temper can lead to big results on the battlefield. You first met Chase in a bar. You had been at university for a few months, and Kylie finally hooked you up with a fake ID. It felt like a last-ditch effort. First few weeks of school were a bust, putting yourself out there, starting up conversations, giving out your number, only to sit alone in your room waiting for a call that never came. You thought catching another guy would be easier. You went through this for years with Marissa and Kylie during high school, so you would have an easier time once you left the Kanto region. You commiserate with each other over failed captures, spend nights telling stories of ones who got away so you could laugh at what those boys missed out on. But now Kylie was off striking gold and Marissa was staying back home. So there was no one else to hear about your guy catching escapades. When Kylie did invite you to the bar, it might have been out of pity, but you weren't in a position to turn her down. At first you stuck together, but after a few hours you turned to ask Kylie if she knew where the bathroom was and she was gone. Solo, you weaseled your way up to the bar and just so happened to wedge yourself next to Chase. He flashed you a bright white smile and offered to buy you a drink. You said yes, hiding your relationship as best you could. Then another beer, and 2 hours later, you'd brought Chase back to your place. On top of being your first catch in the Galar region, Chase was the first guy you slept with. He had much more experience than you did and knew what he liked. You might have been the trainer, but in the bedroom, Chase had all the control. He was bigger than you, stronger than you. When he spanked you, you didn't resist. When he choked you, you just prayed that he would remember to let you breathe. He was heavy on top of you and hot. Between his body and the blankets and the warm Gala region autumn, the heat was unbearable. But you knew he was a catch. High-leveled, solid stats. Over dinner, he could talk about Barcelona versus Granada or listen to you complain about your pre-med classes. He even worked out on his own. Kylie teased that she was jealous despite having caught a nice rock-type guy herself. You just chuckled nervously. And then one day, you two were back at the same bar where you met. It was Friday night and winter break was growing near. The bar offered a pre-finals deal on drinks, which packed the place. Chase took a break from describing his latest project, yet another bird feeder, to go on a 4-beer-long piss, leaving you alone. You didn't drink by yourself for long, though, because a familiar face shoved its way through the crowd. Ashley, is that you? Andrew called out from a few seats down. You shot him a wide smile and waved back. He skidded his way over to you. Apparently, he drove up to see his buddies from high school. Apparently, he's been taking a gap year to work on it at his dad's farm. Apparently, he's quite happy. You talked for only a few minutes, even though you could have gone on for hours, but Chase came back first. Fuck off, she's taken, he shouted from over your shoulder. Any quieter and his voice would have been lost in the crowd, but you still jumped. Oh, sorry, I don't want to hear it. Chase's face was completely flush. You felt his heat wash over you again. He was so close, just like during sex. No, Chase, you start to say, but he can't hear you. The words count as whispers and whimpers. We were just talking, Andrew shouted back. You don't think Chase registered the words, though. All he saw was a rival standing his ground. His left hand formed a fist, and you just tried to move in front of Andrew, and Chase used a right hook. Chase hurt his trainer in confusion. It was super effective. You went down hard. The noise of conversation evaporated from the bar. The pain started numb, then spiked across your face. Tears welled in your eyes. Andrew knelt down next to you. He said something, but you didn't hear it. You were just looking up at Chase. You never really captured him, did you? Even if some days he was yours, that night, he was wild. Chase escaped. Oliver is a flying type guy. This guy does not have a pilot's license or work on quadcopters like other flying type guys in the Gala region, but instead prefers to achieve flight by getting high on mixed mushrooms, lax mints, and other items. Without these items, Oliver reverts to being a normal type guy. Kylie introduced you to Oliver after the whole Chase incident. She said you needed to calm down and find something other than catching guys to do for a while. You, Kylie, her guy Patrick, and Oliver all exchanged full incense and let the afternoon drift away. After the third time you all smoked the big root, Oliver invited you over to his place, just the two of you. It was intimate, but you never made a move to mate. The thought of stripping down brought back memories of hands around your throat. You felt short of breath, but that could just be the power herb you lit up earlier. Tournament deadlines came and went. You didn't even bother signing up. Not only was Oliver underleveled, but he didn't have any interest in training, but you didn't mind. You liked him meek. He was much less alpha than Chase, which was a plus for you at this point. After a month of regular stardusting at Oliver's place, you realized you'd spent time, it had been a while since you'd spent time with Kylie. You sent her a text saying you planned to stop by her apartment in the evening and chat the night away like one of your old slumber parties. She didn't reply, but it was probably fine. You used to show up at her place all the time in high school. You arrived at her door just as the sun set. Chatter and noise from other trainers spending the evening with their guys leaked a little into the hallway. You were so excited you gave 2 loud knocks that bruised your knuckles. But as you stood there, waiting to be let in, you finally registered some of the ambivalent noise was coming from. Ah, shit, you might have intruded. Maybe you should run, or does that make it worse? Is this even the right apartment? You think so? The door opened before you made up your mind. It was Oliver, just wearing his boxers. Oh, you're not the pizza guy. Wait, what? Was all you could muster. Well, we'd ordered pizza, but no, like, why are you here? For a good time? Oliver cocked his head to the side like you were the one spouting nonsense. But I thought we were like a thing. Babe, there are no things in love, just people. I thought we had something special. We do, babe. Oliver wrapped a thin, sweaty arm around you. We have this special, intimate bond between 2 living creatures. You pushed Oliver away. It's not special if it's not just us. It doesn't sound like the thinking of a free spirit. I don't want to be a free spirit. That's all good too, my girl. You keep rocking on then. good vibes. Ollie, is that the pizza guy? Kylie shouted from inside. Nah, it's just Ashley. You could finally see Kylie's head pop out from under the covers. Wait, Ash. And then Oliver closed the door on you. Kevin is an electric type guy. Kevin spends the majority of his time on a computer, which does result in lowered base stats compared to other similarly leveled guys. However, he is capable of researching his opponents, allowing what attacks he does make to have even more effectiveness than normal. You met Kevin on a tractor. He was clever enough in the text you exchanged, so you asked him out to coffee. He was a bit bigger than he looked in his profile, but it wasn't like you didn't use a few filters yourself. The real difference was the way he spoke. He could barely stammer his way through a sentence. You almost made up your mind to try someone else during the walk back home, but then Kevin texted you asking if you wanted to play video games later that night. You were never into video games, but at that point, it was just nice to feel wanted. He first introduced you to World of Warcraft, then Genshin Impact, and lastly League of Legends. You got into a pattern of coming straight to your apartment from lectures, logging on to whatever game Kevin wanted to play that day, and clicking the night away until you fell asleep at 3 a.m. You never really saw Kevin in person, and he even stopped feeling like Kevin to you. It was no longer, hey, let's play with Kevin again tonight, and more, I'll just do one more raid with Hellion 237. But after a few weeks, Kevin started asking for some small loans, $5 here, $10 there, always to unlock new content for you two to play in WoW or buy a new champ in League. Eventually, he started saying it was to buy a shock drive, which excited you because of whatever trainer ambitions you had left. Maybe he might start training on his own. You knew it was a pipe dream, but you indulged in those fantasies anyways. You took up a part-time job to pay for Kevin's training items. You kept asking what level he was at or if you two could meet up so you could see his progress, but he kept putting it off, saying he wasn't ready yet. Week after week after week. Hellion 237 is a ghost type guy. He is believed to be the evolution of Kevin. However, this is yet to be confirmed by Guy researchers, since Hellion 237 has yet to be physically located in the wild. You only noticed the evolution when he said he was too busy to come online. He didn't want to play League of Legends or text late into the night. You even offered to buy him more Genshin Impact roles, but that fell flat. Then after a few weeks, he stopped responding entirely. At first you were annoyed, then worried. He could be in jail or dead or something worse. You were sure there could be something worse. You asked around at the school, but the Kevins that people knew weren't Hellion 237. Maybe he didn't go to your school. You asked around at the bar, still nothing. Maybe Kylie somehow knew. You reached out to her for the first time in months. She was concerned for you, but otherwise she was useless. You retired to your apartment. It's smaller and colder than you remember it. You don't go on your computer, but rather just lay on your bed and look at the posters on the walls. Misty taking on the water gym, a list of every single guy in the Kanto region and their types. Just the words, gotta catch 'em all, but no one strives to be a catch and release trainer. You stayed inside for a few weeks, only making excursions to the Thrifty Mega Mart to stock up on food. Afternoons were spent rewatching tournaments and imagining where you would be if you started going after guys at a much younger age. Maybe you could be a gym leader, or you could be challenging the champion. You got a call from Marissa. You hadn't heard from her in more than a year. Apparently she was in town and wanted to grab coffee. You didn't want to go since that means getting out of bed, making yourself presentable and going outside, but you did it anyways. You saw her at the Starbucks. At first you thought she was early, and then it turned out you were just late. She had an extra cup sitting in front of her. I got you vanilla iced coffee, she said as you sat down. You still like that, right? Yeah, I do. Thanks. You grabbed it sheepishly and only took a sip. How are things going back home? You asked. Pretty good. And how's school been? It's been fine. Really? Marissa leaned over and eyed you like she already knew the answer. Pre-med is hard, but I've been getting through it. Marissa shook her head and smiled. That's not what I mean. Kylie told me about, well, a few guys. Oh. You felt your grip tighten on the plastic coffee cup. You know, Ashley, there's a lot more to life than catching guys. Not everyone needs to be a trainer. There's only a few people who can do that for a living anyways, and I know, but that's why I have my classes, right? I have a backup plan. You and I both know school's taking a backseat, and I know how hard catching guys can be on people. I remember all the times we got rejected in high school. It felt terrible. You, me, and Kylie all had that aspiration of becoming a trainer and going out into the world with a guy of our own, taking on gyms, win tournaments, become famous. But like, catching guys isn't something for, but I'm good at catching them now, you interrupted. I'm so good. You heard what happened. Whenever I put my mind to it, I would go out there and I found another one. It's just, they don't fucking stay. I don't know why, but it keeps happening. And at first I thought it was just unlucky, but then I lost Oliver and Kevin, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just a shitty fucking trainer. What kind of trainer can't keep a guy around for more than a few months? I don't fucking get it. You slammed your fist on into the table. It shook and knocked over your coffee. Your hands hurt, but you didn't care. Your whole body tensed up and you were breathing fast and you just didn't know what you've been doing wrong. And suddenly you felt something warm. Not like Chase during sex or Oliver's room during hot boxes. It's actually warm, like a blanket. Marissa held you close. You took deeper breaths. You first relaxed your chest, then your hands. Last, your body. It felt like you were about to cry, but tears wouldn't come for whatever reason. You let the moment sit for a bit. How long have you been with James? You eventually asked. 3 years now, I think. I'm happy for you. Thanks. Marissa tightened her hug a little. But I don't need you to be happy for me. Right now, I just want you to be happy for you. Okay. With or without a guy? Right. Ryan works at the local guy recovery center and enjoys swimming on the weekends. He never really understood the whole tournament scene and wanted to see what he could do to keep himself out of it. You met Ryan a few years after you graduated med school. You bumped into him during lunch break at the hospital cafeteria. You think he's sort of funny. You gave up on catching guys a long time ago, but he seems to keep sitting next to you. It's not like you're going to stop him. And who knows, maybe he'll stick around, or maybe he won't. And that's fine too.
Oh my God, what a great fucking concept. That was so funny. That was so hilarious. And all your uses of the different Pokemon types were beautiful. I especially loved your use of Ghost type. That's such an amazing play on the term. No, that was hilarious. That was fucking awesome. It was awesome. I was laughing the entire way through, and you delivered on the concept too. A lot of people will write conceptual pieces and they'll like burn out the concept in like a couple paragraphs, and then but you really dug in and you really found like richness and complexity that kind of transcended the premise. So that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed.
It was awesome. Rudy, is anyone else in the queue?
Not that I noticed, no.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else has signed up, and we're getting on 10:30 here, so I think I'll call it a night there, at least for the reading portion. So thank you, everyone who read this evening, and yeah, and it was awesome. And I'm kind of stumbling over my words here, but it was a great time. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, if you follow us on Twitter at Misery Tourism, you can see when the next reading is. We do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Just watch. We'll tweet out the link, and anyone is free to join. Anyone is free to read. Anyway, that's been Misery Loves Company. I guess that's it. I'm fucking done.